and get where you can see one, either Anne or myself, so that you get all of this in the right order. So the next step is to put on this sheet that's going to line the spine of the book. So that's this paper. It's mulberry paper. It's a sheet of Japanese paper, Japanese style paper, which is made differently from Western paper. So, and out of a different material. It's called mulberry because it's made of the bark of the mulberry tree. There are three particular trees that are used for Japanese paper, and mulberry is one of them. It's made from the inner bark of the mulberry tree, and the fibers are a lot longer than the fibers in Western paper, and that's why we're using this to line the spine, because it's very strong paper and very thin paper. It was actually created as a cheap substitute for silk, because silk was the original material that books were written on in Japan, and then this was created to make more available material. So I'm going to, it has two sides. It has a sort of a rougher side and a smoother side. I like to use the rougher side against the spine of the book because the fibers are already a little sticking out a little bit, and they'll stick more readily to the back of the book. So I'm going to fold that paper in half lengthwise to find the center. And you don't have to do this. You can just use the fold as a guide, but just so you can see it and so I can see it better, because these fluorescent lights really erase folds. I just put a light pencil line down that center fold. And I'm going to be placing it, after I glue it, I'll be placing that in the center of this book spine with some material both coming off of the top and the bottom of the book. So I'll put it on the edge of the table again, and I don't know about how any of you did, but you want to use plenty of glue, but you don't want excess glue accumulating on the top and bottom of the covers, because that will show. So try to keep the glue on the spine. It is going to add another layer of glue that'll help keep your book together. So
the right way to do it is down there, but I'll just show you, like, you just start from the center and move that again.
Oh yeah, so that is a good idea since we're done. That's the right way. But so when I'm working from the center to the ends and working the glue into those small crevices between the folds.
The other thing to make sure before you start gluing is you do the sides, so like you don't glue your book shut on both sides.
Yes, yes, that's very important. Yeah, it doesn't work very well after that. So then going to add that piece of paper to the spine.
So I'm just making sure I get a little bit onto the chipboard too without going over.
And I'll rub it in with my finger, and then the last thing is to rub it in with your bone folder. And don't rub too hard because this paper will abrade. But you do want to work it into the spine of the book. This is really what holds it together. Okay, that first coat of glue and the second coat of glue hold it together. And now I would wait for 5 minutes before I go on, but since we're trying to hustle through this here in class, I'm going to trim the edges. So use your triangle and a sharp pencil to create guidelines so that you can cut these covers. This actually shows a little bit since the spine isn't glued onto this, all the way onto this book, that drum gluing. So you need to be a little neat about this. So you should try to cut it square and exactly to the top and bottom of the book.
I'm using the grid lines on my cutting mat too to kind of help make sure I've got things lined up.
Yeah. So that's a good idea, is to line your book up with the grid lines. And so then you can go in there with your ruler and just trim with your sharp X-Acto knife. You'll have to freehand this space across the spine a little bit. And then both ends.
So it's marked, just so you know where to cut, and that's where she said that little space right there is where you kind of freehand. Sometimes this is nice, like just to prop it up, because your book's still kind of fragile at this point. You know, the spine's still a little wet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and flip it around and trim your other side.
Sorry, I should be doing this over.
This is also a good time, if you've got a friend that will hold the book for you, this is a great time to grab that friend and help you out. It gets to be a lot of tools and a lot of fingers in a very small spot. Okay, so once that's trimmed, then these two flaps can be trimmed to be alike. So I'm going to choose I'm choosing 3/4 of an inch, and I'm making my own measuring tool out of this scrap of paper. Do you need a ruler over there?
No,
I've just
someone.
marked that
So you know where to mark.
3/4 of an inch. And then this is easier to get in. First of all, these rulers have a space before any numbers start. So you have to, hold it outside of your book while you're trying to get that 3/4 mark. If you just mark a sheet of paper, then you can slide it right in next to your book. You just need a couple of marks indicating where 3/4 of an inch is, and then you can line that up, that ruler up on those two marks,
Your book, except that on this side
and
you're gonna cut.
make a cut.
I have to get up and do this so you guys.
And you can save these little pieces of paper that you've trimmed off, and I'll show you what you can do with those.
Linda, will they use 3/4 for their final book, or does it just depend on how
It's a
much?
good size. They probably will use 3/4. The mulberry, we're gonna have this mulberry paper already cut for you, so you don't have to buy a full sheet. It is expensive. It's a very expensive sheet of paper, so it only will cost you about 30 cents to buy what you need for the book. So we'll just have those prepared and ready for you to buy in the bookstore. once I get to this point, I'm going to use a waste sheet. These are already cut for you. And if you're, you know, at this point your glue brush has been in water, so make sure you use a paper towel to dry it out so that you're not watering down your glue when you go to the next step. And you'll also need a sheet of wax paper. You can either take the one off the table that you used, or there are more of these. And this is going to be glued onto the cover, but I'm putting the glue onto the mulberry strip. So in next to the book, and I'm getting it covered so the gluing pattern is in a fan shape from the center of the book out. And you'll probably have begun to notice that this PVA dries really, really fast. So you sort of have to have all of your stuff you're going to need right there with you, so you can just lightly push it over with your thumb, and then bone it down with your bone folder, and it practically disappears into the cover of the book. So the same thing on the other side, just and now this strip, I'll just have to be careful not to put my book into the glue that I've already got on there.
Just a little excess glue. So these can be reused again and again if you don't make it down after.
I'm using the bone folder from the center of the book out. You notice that some glue is coming out of that, so I wiped that off because I don't want it to make a three-dimensional glue, drop of glue there on the end of the book or get onto any of the pages. So this is how far we'll get today, and then we'll do the spine next time. But one thing you can do between now and then is, if you would like the result of this book when it's finished, the cover paper covers up to this piece of cloth. The cloth is attached around the spine, but those pieces of board are still showing right there. You see that? The boards are still showing when the book is done. You see the space right there. So if you want to, you can use this little piece of paper that you had left over from the trimming your mulberry paper to make a covering for that. And I suggest you use either acrylic paint or permanent marker to color the Japanese paper. You can also just color the top of the boards, but there's more of a chance that you might also color the top of your book too. So having it as a separate piece helps there. So that can you can add a little note of color in there if you want to. And then, yeah, and then we